Ethan Cole was a man forgotten by the world. He lived alone in a small wooden cabin on the edge of a dark forest. Every morning he woke up to silence, made his coffee, and watched the empty road outside. No one ever came, no one ever called his name. He had tried once to love and to be loved, but every woman he met walked away. Some said he was strange, some said he was cold. Others just stopped answering his messages. He started to believe maybe something was wrong with him. Something deep inside that people could feel but never explain. At night he often looked up at the stars. They were the only things that stayed with him. He would sit on his porch, a blanket around his shoulders, watching the night sky. Sometimes he whispered to the stars as if someone might hear him. "Maybe out there someone understands me," he said softly. He smiled at his own foolishness, but his eyes carried a quiet sadness. Then one night everything changed. The air was colder than usual, and clouds covered most of the moon. Ethan sat near the fire, reading an old science fiction book, when a strange rumble echoed in the distance. At first he thought it was thunder, but the sky was clear above the forest. The sound grew louder, sharper, like metal scraping the wind. Then he saw it, a flash of blinding blue light falling from the heavens. It tore across the sky and disappeared behind the trees with a crash that shook the ground. Ethan froze, his heart pounding. The forest went silent. Even the crickets stopped singing. A faint smell of smoke drifted through the air. He grabbed his flashlight and coat, stepped outside, and started running toward the light. The wind howled through the trees and the ground was damp with rain. Branches cracked under his boots as he pushed through the thick forest. He followed the smoke until he saw a soft blue glow between the trees. When he reached the clearing, his breath caught. There it was, a silver craft half buried in the soil, steam rising from its sides. It looked nothing like any plane or helicopter he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, and strange symbols glowed faintly along its edges. Ethan took a step closer, his heart racing. A soft sound came from inside, a low, painful cry. He hesitated, then called out, "Hello, is anyone there?" No answer, only the sound of crackling energy. He climbed over a broken piece of the craft and peered inside. A dim blue light flickered, revealing someone lying on the floor. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing, and her hair shimmered like silver strands in the dark. She looked fragile, her breathing shallow, her clothes torn and burned from the crash. Ethan felt fear and awe at the same time. He had never seen anything like her, yet there was something painfully human in her expression. Pain, fear, and exhaustion, he whispered softly. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened slowly, bright, glowing with a soft golden light. For a moment their eyes met, and Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. The alien woman tried to speak, but her voice was weak. Her lips moved, and through a faint metallic sound, words came out. "Don't let them find me," she whispered. Then she collapsed into his arms. Unconscious, Ethan stood frozen, his mind spinning. He looked around, expecting to see others, but the forest was empty. The sky rumbled softly, lightning flashing in the far distance. He knew he couldn't just leave her there carefully. He lifted her. She was lighter than he expected, her body cold but pulsing with faint energy. He carried her through the woods, back to his cabin, trying not to trip in the dark. His flashlight flickered, and every sound made him turn his head somewhere behind him. He thought he heard a soft humming, like engines far away searching. When he reached the cabin, he placed her gently on his couch, covering her with a blanket. He looked at her glowing skin and strange markings on her arms. He didn't know who she was or what she was running from, but one thing he knew, someone or something might be coming to find her, and if her warning was true, they would stop at nothing. Ethan locked the door, turned off the lights, and sat near the window. Outside, the forest was quiet again, but he could feel it. The air wasn't the same. He watched the tree line, waiting for any movement inside. The alien girl's breathing slowed. Soft and calm, Ethan whispered to himself, "What have I just brought into my life?" He didn't know that this single choice, saving a stranger from the stars, would change everything he ever believed about love, loneliness, and being human. When morning came, Ethan opened his eyes to the sound of soft breathing. For a moment, he forgot what had happened last night. Then he turned and saw her, the alien woman lying on his couch, her blue skin glowing faintly in the sunlight that streamed through the window. Her wounds looked cleaner. Her skin seemed to repair itself slowly, as if some invisible force was healing her. Ethan sat on the edge of the chair, afraid to move, afraid to wake her. He could still hear her words from last night echoing in his head. Don't let them find me. He watched her chest rise and fall, slow and steady. She looked peaceful now, but there was something about her presence that made the air feel different. He didn't know if it was fear or awe, but he couldn't look away after a while. He quietly made some tea and sat beside her, wondering what he should do next. Should he call someone? Should he tell the police or scientists? But a deep voice inside him said no. If he did, they would take her away, study her, maybe even hurt her. He couldn't let that happen. Hours passed before she finally opened her eyes. Golden light filled her gaze, soft and unsure. When she tried to sit up, Ethan gently helped her. Take it easy, he said, his voice shaking a little. You're safe here. She looked around the room, touching the blanket, the table, the light switch. Everything seemed new to her. Then she spoke. Her words came out in a mix of soft sounds and mechanical tones. A small device on her collar blinked and translated her voice. Whoa. Where am I? She asked slowly, her voice fragile but calm. You're on Earth, Ethan replied. You crashed in the forest last night. She nodded weakly, her expression filled with pain and fear. Earth, she repeated as if trying to remember the word. Her gaze turned toward the window, where the sky stretched wide and blue. I didn't mean to come here, she said. They were chasing me. Ethan leaned forward. Who's they? Her eyes darkened. Hunters from the Dominion. They track those who escape. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Ethan caught her before she fell, his hands trembling slightly as he helped her back to the couch. Easy, he said. You're still weak. She looked at him curiously, as if surprised by his kindness. You helped me, she said, her voice softer now. Why? Ethan didn't have an answer. He simply said, because you needed help. For a moment there was silence. The wind moved through the trees outside and sunlight flickered on the floor. Liara, that was the name she finally told him, stared at the light like she had never seen something so simple and beautiful. On her planet, she said, light came from their cities, not from a sun. Everything there was artificial, cold, perfect, and empty. When Ethan asked her why she ran away, she only said, because I wanted to feel something real. He gave her water and some food, but she didn't eat much. She seemed distracted, her eyes sometimes glowing when she heard distant sounds. At one point she froze completely, her head turning sharply toward the forest. Ethan followed her gaze but saw nothing. They're searching, she whispered, her tone filled with fear. They can track my energy signature. Ethan felt his heart pound again. He rushed to close the curtains and dim the lights. Liara stood weakly, holding a small crystal that glowed faintly in her hand. If they find me, they will not only take me, she said. They will destroy everything they see. Ethan tried to stay calm. Then we hide, he said. I know these woods better than anyone. Liara looked at him. Unsure you would hide me? Yes, he said without hesitation. You trusted me enough to ask for help. Now let me protect you. Her eyes softened, almost shining with tears. In her world, no one ever offered kindness without expecting something in return. But this human, alone, broken, forgotten, had chosen to help her without question. As night began to fall again, Ethan packed a small bag with food, water, and a flashlight. He helped Liara stand, wrapping a blanket around her to cover her glowing skin. They left the cabin quietly, walking through the dark trees as the moon rose above them. Far in the distance, a faint humming sound echoed. Not from Earth. It was the sound of the hunters' ships scanning the forest. Liara stopped and turned toward the noise, her eyes glowing brighter. We must move faster, she said, her voice trembling. They are closer than I thought. Ethan nodded and led her deeper into the woods. He didn't know where this path would lead or what danger waited ahead. But one thing he knew, he couldn't let her fall into the wrong hands somehow. Protecting her felt like protecting something far greater than himself. As they disappeared into the forest shadows, the wind carried a soft whisper, a distant echo of the stars they both came to trust, and in that silence, the strange bond between a human and an alien began to grow, quietly, powerfully, and beautifully. The forest was darker than before. Tall trees surrounded Ethan and Liara like silent guards, their branches swaying gently in the cold wind. Moonlight slipped through the leaves, painting silver lines across the forest floor. Ethan led the way, holding a small flashlight, its beam trembling in his shaking hand. Behind him, Liara walked carefully, her steps soft. Her glowing eyes scanning the shadows, she could feel them and the hunters, moving somewhere far beyond the trees. Following the trail of energy her ship had left behind, they reached a small clearing near a waterfall, where the sound of rushing water helped cover their noise. Ethan stopped and turned to her. "We can rest here," he said quietly. "They won't find us easily near the water." Liara nodded, lowering herself onto a rock, her breath uneven. Her wounds still hadn't healed completely, and the journey had drained her strength. Ethan filled a small bottle from the stream and gave it to her. She drank slowly, her eyes reflecting the moonlight like two golden stars. "You risked your life for me," she said softly. "You could have left me there, but you didn't." Ethan looked away, unsure how to respond. "I just couldn't walk away," he said. "You needed help, and I couldn't let you face that alone." Liara smiled faintly, a rare and gentle smile. "Humans are strange," she whispered. "On my world, no one would do that." They sat in silence for a while. Listening to the waterfall, Ethan's heart began to calm, though something deep inside told him this peace wouldn't last. He looked at her again, the way her hair shimmered under the moonlight, the way her eyes seemed to see through him. She wasn't just an alien to him anymore, she was something more. Someone who had seen pain like his. Someone who understood what it meant to be alone. Then suddenly Liara's eyes widened. She stood up fast, her head turning sharply toward the trees. Ethan tensed. "What is it?" he whispered. "They are here," she said, her voice trembling. "I can feel their signal." Ethan turned off his flashlight instantly, darkness swallowing them both in the distance. Strange lights flickered, small red dots moving between the trees. They weren't fireflies, they moved with purpose. Slow and steady, scanning the ground, Liara pressed a glowing crystal on her wrist, and her skin dimmed, the light fading from her body. "Energy cloak," she whispered. "It will hide us for a short time." Ethan crouched beside her, his heart beating fast. They watched as 3 tall figures appeared at the edge of the clearing. Their armor shone like liquid metal, their eyes glowed crimson, and their voices sounded like sharp echoes in the wind. One of them spoke in a strange metallic language. Pointing toward the crashed ship's direction, Ethan couldn't understand the words, but Liara's face turned pale. "They're saying they can smell human scent," she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard, fear rising in his chest. The hunters began moving toward the waterfall, their scanners glowing brighter. Liara grabbed Ethan's hand and pulled him behind a large rock. "Stay still," she said. "Don't breathe too loud." They crouched low, their shoulders touching, the sound of the waterfall covering their breathing. Ethan could feel her heartbeat racing fast, and somehow that sound gave him courage. The hunters stopped just a few steps away. One of them aimed a device toward the water, the beam flashing across the surface for a moment. Ethan thought they had been found, but then one of the hunters turned away and spoke again. The red lights faded slowly, and within seconds, they disappeared back into the woods. Ethan waited, counting every second in silence, until the forest became calm again. When he finally exhaled, his body trembled from the tension. Liara released his hand, her face still alert but softer now. "They will keep searching," she said. "They never give up." Ethan nodded. "Then we keep moving." Liara looked at him with quiet admiration. "You're not afraid?" she asked. He gave a tired smile. "Of course I am," he said. "But running with you feels better than hiding alone." They followed the stream deeper into the forest until they found a cave hidden behind the waterfall. Inside, the walls sparkled faintly, covered in strange mineral patterns. Ethan started a small fire with dry wood, the orange light flickering across the stone walls. Liara sat close, her hands stretched toward the warmth. She looked tired, yet her eyes carried a strange peace. For the first time since her crash, she felt safe. Ethan studied her quietly, his mind full of questions. Who were these hunters? Why did they want her? What made her run from her world? But he didn't ask, not yet. He just said softly, "You should rest." She looked at him and nodded, her voice gentle as she said, "You are different." "Ethan Cole," he smiled faintly. "You're not the first to say that," he replied. She tilted her head slightly. "Maybe that's why I trust you." As the night deepened, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat at the cave entrance, watching the stars shimmer through the falling water. Somewhere out there, other ships might be searching. Other eyes might be watching, but for now, he felt something new, a sense of purpose. A reason to protect. Behind him, Liara slept peacefully, her hand resting near the fire's glow, and in that quiet cave, surrounded by danger and darkness, two lonely souls from different worlds began to feel less alone. The first light of dawn touched the edge of the forest. Mist floated above the ground, soft and silver, inside the hidden cave. Ethan woke to the faint sound of dripping water and the quiet breathing of Liara. She still slept near the fire, her face calm but pale. For a moment, Ethan just watched her. It was strange, he thought, how peaceful she looked, as if she belonged to the earth itself. But the silence didn't last long. Liara's eyes opened suddenly, glowing brighter than before. She sat up fast, her voice sharp. "They're close." Ethan's heart skipped. "How do you know?" "I can feel their frequency," she said, her hand pressed against her temple. "They're tracking the ship's remains, Dur and us." Ethan grabbed his bag and began packing quickly. "Then we have to move now," he said, but before he could finish, a loud hum filled the air. It was deep and strange. Like thunder mixed with metal, the ground began to shake, pebbles rolling near their feet. Liara looked toward the mouth of the cave, her voice trembling. "It's too late." A beam of red light shot through the waterfall. Cutting through the cave entrance, Ethan threw himself to the ground as the rocks exploded beside him. Liara shouted something in her language, and a blue shield burst from her wrist, forming a glowing wall between them and the blast. The energy beam hit the shield, sending ripples of light across the cave walls. Ethan covered his ears as the sound roared like a storm. When the smoke cleared, he saw 3 tall hunters standing outside. Their glowing eyes scanning the darkness, Liara pulled Ethan back, whispering, "Stay behind me." Her calm voice carried both fear and strength. She raised her hand, and the crystal on her collar glowed brightly. From it, thin streams of light formed a small drone, a floating sphere that hummed quietly in the air. It shot forward like lightning, striking the nearest hunter's weapon and sending sparks flying. The alien creature staggered, shouting something metallic, but the others moved fast. Aiming their guns again, Ethan felt useless. Trapped between terror and confusion, he grabbed a rock and threw it, a desperate act. But the sound drew one of the hunters toward him. "Ethan, no," Liara cried, but it was too late. The hunter raised his weapon, and a bolt of energy flew toward him. Ethan dove behind a boulder, but the blast hit his arm. Burning his sleeve and skin, he gritted his teeth in pain. Falling to the ground, Liara turned, her eyes burning gold. She shouted a word that echoed through the air like thunder, and her body flashed with light. A wave of energy burst from her palms, knocking the hunters back into the trees. The waterfall itself seemed to tremble as the light filled the clearing. When the energy faded, silence fell again, broken only by the sound of rushing water. Ethan tried to move, but pain shot through his arm. Liara ran to him, kneeling at his side, her hands glowing softly as she touched his wound. He flinched at first, but then the pain began to fade. Her energy flowed like warm light through his skin, closing the burn. "You saved me again," she said quietly, her voice shaking. "Why do you keep doing that?" Ethan gave a weak smile. "Because that's what humans do." Liara looked into his eyes, her expression unreadable. "For a human, you are very strange," she whispered, and for a second, there was something like affection in her voice. But the peace didn't last outside the cave. The forest still glowed red from the hunters' weapons. "They'll come again," Liara said, standing up. "We can't stay here." Ethan forced himself to his feet, his arm still weak but healing. "Where can we go?" he asked. Liara thought for a moment, then pointed toward the mountains. "There's an energy field near the ridge," she said. "If I can reach it, I can send a false signal. They'll think I'm dead." They moved quickly through the forest. Keeping to the shadows, the sun was rising, painting the world in gold and mist. Every step felt heavy, every breath tight with fear. Ethan could hear faint metallic noises echoing behind them. "They're still following," he said. Liara nodded. "They always follow." As they crossed a stream, Ethan stumbled. Falling into the shallow water, Liara reached out and caught him, her hand resting on his chest to steady him. Their eyes met for a long moment, neither spoke. But something unspoken passed between them. Trust. Connection, maybe something more. Then Liara looked away, her voice soft. "You are hurt because of me." Ethan shook his head. "I'm alive because of you." For the first time, she smiled, a real gentle smile that made her seem almost human. They continued walking until they reached a ridge overlooking the valley. From there, they could see the smoke rising from the forest, and the faint lights of the hunters moving below. Liara placed her hand on the crystal again, sending a pulse of blue light into the air. "This will distract them for a while," she said. "But they'll keep searching." Ethan looked at her. "Then we keep running," Liara turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. "You would run with me forever?" Ethan smiled faintly. "If that's what it takes." She looked at him for a long time, her expression filled with something deeper than words. Then she whispered, "You are not like the others I've known." As they stood together on the mountain ridge, the wind blowing through their hair, the sun rising behind them, neither of them knew what waited ahead, but both understood one truth. Their fates were now bound together, and somewhere in the shadows of the forest, unseen eyes still watched them, patient and silent. The hunt was not over, not yet. The mountains stretched endlessly before them. Silent and cold, Ethan and Liara had been walking for hours, guided only by the faint blue glow from her crystal. The world felt empty, untouched by time. Snowflakes began to fall, small and soft. Melting as they touched Ethan's warm skin, he looked at Liara walking just ahead, her hair shimmering under the pale light like strands of fire. Even in the icy air, she seemed untouched by the cold. Moving with quiet grace, it was strange, he thought, how someone not from this planet could look so alive beneath its sky. They stopped near a cliff, where the wind carried the scent of pine and snow. Liara turned, her face calm but her eyes full of thought. "We can rest here for a while," she said. Her voice low, Ethan nodded and sat on a rock, his breath fogging in the air. For a few minutes neither spoke. Only the wind spoke for them, whispering through the trees. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Back there," he said softly, "when you healed me, what was that?" "Some kind of alien medicine?" Liara smiled faintly. "It's energy," she replied. "My people can share life force to heal or to connect." "To connect?" Ethan asked, curious. "Yes," she said, looking at him. "When I touched you, I felt something I wasn't supposed to feel." Ethan's heart thudded in his chest. "What did you feel?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Liara hesitated, her eyes glowing faintly in the cold air. "Warmth," she said finally, "and sadness, but also hope." She looked away quickly. "It's strange, humans are fragile, but your emotions are strong." "Bright like fire," Ethan smiled a little. "Yeah, well, sometimes that fire burns us too." For the first time, Liara laughed, a soft sound that melted the silence around them. It wasn't just a laugh. It was the sound of someone discovering what it meant to be alive. As the day faded, they built a small camp under a cluster of ancient trees. Ethan started a fire while Liara studied the stars above. The sky shimmered with thousands of lights, and among them, she recognized constellations from her home system. "I used to look at these same stars," she said. "But from the other side of the galaxy." Ethan looked up too. "Do you miss it? Your world?" Liara's expression softened. "Sometimes," she whispered. "But there is nothing left to return to. My world is gone." Ethan's chest tightened. "I'm sorry, don't be," she said. "Maybe this is where I was meant to be." The fire crackled softly, reflecting in her eyes like tiny suns. For a while they sat in silence, listening to the forest breathe. Ethan couldn't stop looking at her, the way her skin shimmered with soft light, the way her voice seemed to hum like a melody from another world. There was something about her that pulled him in. Not just beauty, but something deeper, something human. "Liara," he said quietly, "why did your ship crash? Were you running from someone?" Her eyes flickered. "Not someone," she said. "Something." "The hunters?" he asked. She shook her head. "Worse, my people." Ethan frowned. "Your people? Why would they chase you?" Liara looked into the fire, her expression dark. "I broke the law," she said. "I questioned what we were doing. I refused to destroy another world." She looked at him then, her eyes glowing with sadness. "My people believe humans are dangerous, that your emotions make you unstable, that you will destroy the stars like you destroy your own world." Ethan laughed bitterly. "They're not entirely wrong." "No," she said softly, "but they are afraid of what you can become." The wind howled outside the trees. Carrying the sound of distant thunder, Liara stood, her gaze distant. "They will not stop until I am gone." Ethan rose too. "Then they'll have to go through me first." She looked at him in surprise. "You would fight for me?" He smiled, tired but sincere. I already am. Liara stepped closer, her hand brushing against his. Her touch was light, almost electric. For a moment time seemed to stop. The firelight painted their faces in gold and shadow. Her voice was barely a whisper. You risked everything for me, why? Ethan met her eyes. Because you're the first person who ever saw me. Liara's expression softened, and in that moment her alien glow dimmed just enough for her to look completely human. She moved closer, her hand resting on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Your heart, she said. It beats so fast. That's because of you, he replied with a smile. For the first time since her crash, she didn't feel like an exile. She felt something warm, something real love, fragile but alive, blooming between two lost souls from different worlds. Outside, the wind carried strange sounds again, faint hums that echoed through the valley. Liara's smile faded. They're coming, she whispered. Ethan grabbed his bag. Then we run again. Liara looked at him one last time before turning toward the mountain path. This time she didn't walk ahead alone. She took his hand. Their fingers intertwined, glowing faintly under the alien light, and together they vanished into the night. Running toward the unknown, not just fugitives, but two beings bound by something the universe itself could not destroy. Love beyond the stars. The night stretched endlessly over the mountains. Cold wind brushed against the rocky cliffs as Ethan and Liara moved silently through the dark. They had been running for hours, the faint hum of distant engines chasing them through the sky. Ethan's legs ached, but he didn't slow down. Liara's hand still held his, her glowing skin lighting their path through the mist. Every time he looked at her, he felt strength returning. Not from courage, but from connection. Finally, they reached a narrow valley hidden between two cliffs. At its center stood an ancient stone structure, half buried in snow and time. Strange symbols covered its walls, glowing faintly blue. Pulsing like a heartbeat, Liara stopped, her breath visible in the cold air. This is it, she whispered. The last refuge. Ethan stared at the strange ruins. What is this place? It's older than both our worlds, she said. Built by the ones who came before, the ones before? He repeated, confused. Liara nodded slowly. My people called them the first makers, beings who could shape stars and worlds. They stepped inside the ruins. The air was warmer, filled with a soft hum that vibrated in Ethan's chest. The walls glowed brighter as Liara walked deeper into the chamber. Ethan followed, his footsteps echoing softly. At the center of the room stood a giant crystal, cracked but still alive with light. Liara approached it carefully and placed her hand on its surface. Blue light spread beneath her fingers and ancient symbols lit up across the walls. Ethan watched in awe. What is it doing? It's responding to me, she said softly. It remembers my kind. The floor began to shift, stone panels sliding apart to reveal a circular platform beneath them. From its center, a holographic figure rose, a being made of light, its voice calm but deep. Liara of Alindra, it said, you have returned, but you are not alone. Ethan froze. Staring at the glowing figure, Liara lowered her head. I seek protection, Ancient One. They are hunting me. The hologram turned slightly toward Ethan, its eyes glowing white. And the human? It asked. Why bring him here? Liara hesitated. He saved me, and I trust him. The figure studied Ethan for a long moment, its voice softened. Strange. I sense resonance within him, a frequency once thought lost. Ethan frowned. What does that mean? Liara turned toward him slowly, her expression uncertain. The first makers touched some humans long ago, she said quietly. They left traces of their energy inside them. A gift or a curse. No one knows. Ethan blinked. Are you saying I'm one of them? The hologram's light flickered. You carry the spark of the old code, it said. You are part of the link that connects our worlds. Liara stepped closer to him, her eyes wide. That's why they found us so fast, she said. They're not just tracking me, they're tracking you. Ethan's heart pounded. So I've been the signal this whole time? Yes, she whispered, and that means they will never stop. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the soft hum of the crystal. Ethan clenched his fists. Then we have to fight back. Liara looked at him with a mix of fear and admiration. You don't understand, she said. Fighting them means facing the council itself, my people, my creators. Then let them come, Ethan said firmly. I'm done running. The holographic being stepped forward. its voice echoing like wind through stone. "There is one chance," it said. "A hidden passage leads to the heart of the mountain. There lies the source. The last fragment of the First Maker's power." Liara's eyes widened. "The source still exists?" "Yes," the being said. "But once it awakens, it will draw every eye in the galaxy." Ethan looked at Liara, determination burning in his eyes. "Then let them look," he said. "We'll end this together." The figure bowed slightly before fading into light. The walls dimmed and silence returned. Liara turned toward Ethan, her face full of worry and wonder. "You don't know what you're agreeing to," she said. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But I know one thing, I'm not leaving you." Her eyes softened, and for a brief moment the fear inside her faded. She reached out and touched his face, her fingers cold but gentle. "You humans," she whispered. "You never stop believing. And you aliens," he said softly, "never stop running." For the first time, she smiled again. "Maybe we'll both learn something." They followed a narrow tunnel deeper into the mountain. The walls shimmered faintly, guiding them with soft blue light. Ethan felt the air grow warmer, heavier. As if the world itself was breathing, Liara walked ahead, her crystal glowing brighter with each step. "I can feel it," she said. "The source is near." Ethan could feel it too, and a vibration deep in his bones, like something ancient awakening. As they entered a massive chamber, they both stopped in awe. Before them floated a sphere of pure light, suspended in the air like a living sun. It pulsed gently as if aware of their presence. Liara stepped closer, whispering, "It's alive," Ethan stared. "What does it do?" "It remembers," she said, "and it chooses. And chooses what? Who is worthy?" Before Ethan could speak, the sphere pulsed brighter, sending waves of light through the chamber. He felt his heart race, his skin burning with invisible energy. Liara cried out as the crystal on her chest glowed in response. The air trembled, and both of them were lifted from the ground. The source had found them, and it was deciding their fate. The chamber glowed like a small sun. Light filled every corner, wrapping Ethan and Liara in waves of golden fire. The air shook, humming with power older than time. Ethan felt his body float, weightless, his heartbeat echoing with the pulse of the source. Liara reached for him, her fingers brushing his arm, sparks of light forming where they touched. "Ethan," she called out, her voice trembling. "Don't fight it. Let it see you." He tried to speak, but his words vanished in the light, replaced by visions that flooded his mind. He saw stars being born, whole galaxies swirling like storms of color. He saw the first makers, beings of pure light, shaping worlds with their hands. And then he saw Earth, small and fragile, glowing blue among the darkness. He saw himself, standing at its center, connected by threads of light that stretched across the stars. He understood then. The source was not just energy, it was memory, life itself. And somehow, a part of it had always been inside him, waiting. Liara's voice broke through the visions. "You can control it," she said. "It's choosing you." Ethan's eyes glowed faintly, matching the color of the source. "What about you?" he asked, his voice distant but strong. Liara smiled sadly. "I was never meant to hold it, only to find the one who could." The realization hit him like a wave. Liara's mission wasn't about survival. It was destiny. She was sent to find him, the human who could awaken the source. "But if you brought me here," he said, "then what happens to you?" Liara looked down, her glow fading softly. "My purpose ends." Ethan shook his head, the light pulsing harder around him. "No, I won't let that happen." The source reacted to his emotion, glowing brighter, its energy crackling through the air like a storm. The mountain trembled, stones falling from the ceiling. Liara reached out, her hand on his chest. "Ethan, stop. You'll destroy yourself." He met her eyes, tears mixing with the golden light. "I'd rather lose everything than lose you." Her expression softened, breaking into something between sorrow and love. "You humans," she whispered again, "always choosing heart over logic." The source expanded, filling the entire chamber with blinding light. Ethan felt something inside him open, a warmth spreading from his chest outward. He wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't just human. He was part of something far greater. Energy flowed from him into the crystal walls, and for a moment the entire mountain glowed. Outside, the hunters searching the valley looked up in fear as the sky turned gold. Their ships lost power, their weapons failed, and the earth itself seemed to breathe. When the light faded, Ethan stood in the center of the chamber. Surrounded by silence, Liara lay a few feet away, unconscious but alive. Her skin faintly glowing, he stumbled toward her, kneeling beside her, his hands shaking. "Liara," he whispered, "please, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open, and when she looked at him, her glow returned, but softer now, more human than before. "What happened?" she asked weakly. Ethan smiled faintly. "You happened." She looked around, realizing the source was gone. Its energy absorbed into the walls and into him. "You became the link," she said quietly. "You saved both worlds." Outside, the storm had stopped. The sky was clear, filled with thousands of stars shining brighter than ever. Ethan helped Liara stand, their hands still glowing faintly where they touched. She looked at him, her voice gentle. "The hunters are gone. They can't sense us anymore." He nodded. "Then maybe we finally get to live," Liara smiled. But there was sadness in her eyes. "You've changed everything, Ethan. But this power will fade if you stay here." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "You are now part of the source," she said softly. "You belong to the stars, not the ground." Ethan fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. He looked up at the sky. Endless. Bright, calling him home. "So if I leave," he said, "you'll be alone again." Liara stepped closer, her hand resting against his cheek. "No," she said, "I'll never be alone again, because part of you will always stay here." A single tear slipped down her cheek. Glowing like liquid light, Ethan leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. "I don't want to go," he whispered. "Then stay for this moment," she said, closing her eyes for a heartbeat. Everything was still. The mountain wind softened. The stars seemed to hold their breath. And under that silent sky, a human and an alien shared a final moment of peace, a connection beyond words, beyond fear, beyond worlds. When Ethan opened his eyes again, light surrounded him once more. Liara smiled through her tears. "Go, Ethan. Show them what humanity can be." The golden light lifted him slowly into the air, his form fading into the glow until he became part of the stars themselves. The night returned to quiet, but the air carried warmth, the memory of love and light. Liara stood alone on the ridge, looking up at the stars. Her voice broke the silence, soft but sure. "He was the spark," she whispered, "and I was the wind." The stars shimmered in reply. A new constellation glowed faintly in the night sky, a symbol of a man and a woman, holding hands across the cosmos, and somewhere beyond the edge of the universe, Ethan's voice echoed faintly. "I'm still with you." Liara smiled, her crystal flickering gently. Then she turned and began walking down the mountain, not as a fugitive, not as a soldier, but as a messenger of love, the kind that could save worlds, the kind born not from blood or duty, but from the heart of a human who was once rejected by every human female, and who finally found love in an alien's embrace.